So, Abingdon 2025, what went wrong?
2 weeks ago, I was extremely proud to put on the Welsh vest to run the Abingdon Marathon. I trained really hard to do myself and the vest proud. This should have been one of the best days in my long-running career. However, it was not to be, and my dreams turned to dust. In this video, I'm going to reveal the major reason why things went so wrong. This was something I had not expected, and I'm still coming to terms with it. But it's not going to stop me keep on keeping on.
So, 16 weeks of training. Now, some would say 16 weeks of marathon training is too long, that you could have done a 12-week or a 14-week or even an 8-week. And that may be so for some. But on this occasion, 16 weeks was right for me. So that's not what went wrong. In fact, 8 days before the marathon, I actually showed how good a shape I was in because I ran my fastest 5K of the year. And even if I hadn't been in tip-top form, I was still fit enough to complete a marathon comfortably, even if it wasn't in the time that I had in mind. So what did go wrong? So this is the third important marathon in the last 3 years that I DNF'd on. That's not good. I know something wasn't quite right. Still isn't quite right. So in the last couple of weeks since my DNF at Abingdon, I've had a lot of thinking time. Both John and I have looked over the last few marathons I've done to see what was the same, what was different, and if there was anything we could have changed. In particular, we looked at the taper, which did have some similarities. So in all those 3 marathons, the one thing that was similar was that I tapered quite aggressively for them. Now, this wasn't because I was tired from the training, it was because I was tired from work and it was coming up to the end of a term. So to allow me to get to the marathon fresh, we thought I could take a longer taper. And at the time, I thought it was the right thing to do. So whilst I didn't actually alter the pattern of my running, I did bring my mileage down significantly. And for me, that was probably a bit too much. Because obviously I was in taper, in the days leading into the marathon, I'd obviously carbo-loaded, drank more fluid than I would normally drink, and my body was loaded with carbs and liquid, as you want for a marathon. However, what I found is in the day before the marathon, my calves were rock solid, and I went for a little run, and to tell the truth, they didn't feel good at all. So there was another reason why I decided to go for an aggressive taper, and that's because I have had increasing amounts of discomfort in my back from my shoulders right down to my glutes, which has been transferring into my hamstrings. Now, those who've watched the channel for a long time will remember at Chester Marathon where I had significant difficulties with my hamstrings and I DNF'd. Those of you who've continued to watch the channel will have heard me say several times about my hamstrings and that I've been having ongoing treatment for it. So hold that in your mind, because what I come to later in this video has a significant bearing on why I'm having those pains. So was my taper wrong? Possibly had some bearing on it. In an ideal world, I probably would have run more in the taper, but for the reasons stated, I didn't. My in-race nutrition was absolutely spot on. I would not have faded from 8 miles on with the nutrition I was taking. I was taking the beta gels, SAS beta gels. They have 40 grams of carbs, and I was taking them every 30 minutes. So up until the point of DNFing, I'd already had 3 of those gels. So if you watched the last video where I did DNF, you will remember my initial thoughts turned to strength and conditioning, because I felt that I'd let that go during the final stages of the marathon build, and that still holds true. I had let that go compared to what I was doing at the beginning of marathon block. And again, that probably had something to do with it, but it's not the whole story. So let me take you to what is the problem. So many of you will know that I've said over several videos how I suffer with my back. So to cut a long story short, I have had a long-term back issue since my early 20s, where it was identified that I have an extra lumbar vertebrae or a 6th lumbar vertebrae, something to do with fusing of the spine, and narrowing of the disc space. Okay, so I've had that all my life, and I was told that it wouldn't actually cause me any harm, that I wouldn't really suffer from it. So I just took that the mild discomfort that I have lived with in my lower back was something I just have to live with. But as I mentioned earlier, over the last few years, I've started to have significant pain in my back, to the extent where I was so concerned a couple of months ago, I went to the GP to ask for some blood tests. I wanted to find out what was wrong. Blood tests were fine, by the way. So I continued to see a sports therapist thinking it's just my mechanics, it's just something to do with me. And she suggested, because the treatment I was having wasn't doing anything for my hamstrings, she said my hamstrings were fine, there was no damage in the hamstrings, and I shouldn't get burning in my glutes. She suggested I see a chiropractor. So last week I went to see a highly recommended chiropractor in the South Yorkshire region. And what he told me shocked me to the core. So yes, I was absolutely shocked when I was stood there after having an assessment, and he said to me, "You have scoliosis." So I stood there and I said, "Really?" So, those of you who don't know what scoliosis is, it's a degenerative spinal condition, and it actually means a curvature of the spine. So I have a degenerative back condition. He actually said have a chronic mechanical back condition. So what does this mean? Well, firstly, it actually makes total sense to why I have struggled significantly in the last couple of years with my back, my glutes and my hamstrings, because without knowing it, my nerves have been impinged. It also explains why my best performances have come over 5k and 10k, and I've struggled over the half marathon and the marathon.
So does that mean you're going to have to become one of those really sensible runners who only race 5Ks and 10Ks and forget about the longer distances?
Not just yet. However, in the long term, possibly yes. Firstly, running is good for it, believe it or not, but maybe not doing marathons. So eventually I will give up doing the marathon. I've got one more I want to do. Fortunately, with scoliosis, it can be treated, and so I am booked in for sessions with a chiropractor. I had my first one last week, and I have to say, even after just one session, I felt like my back was able to move much more freely, and I actually had quite a good run the next day. So yes, it can be treated, and I will be having treatment, and I will be doing another marathon. So I hope that I do get selected for Wales to run in Manchester in 2026, as that may be my last marathon, but never say never. So scoliosis isn't going to make me an old ruin. No, on a serious note, it is a condition that can deteriorate over time, but you can actually manage it, and it's unlikely that I'm going to get really bad, but it does actually impact on my running, but running is good for it. So back to strength and conditioning, there are things that can exacerbate the pains in my back, so I have to be careful what type of exercises I do. So no heavy lifting on one side, for instance, not to do side bends. There are several strength exercises to avoid, which means I will be looking carefully at which ones I will be including to make my back strong.
So what have we learned?
Well, what I've learned is I didn't do anything wrong in my build-up for the marathons. It's a condition, and a condition that I need to manage.
So I hope that's given you a little bit of insight into the reason behind why I DNF'd at Abingdon, but not just Abingdon, why I DNF'd at the other two marathons as well. So yes, it's something I didn't know about, it's something I now know about, and I will get on top of it. It isn't going to define me. I will be back, I will be doing another marathon, and I hope on that occasion I'll be successful. So until next time, keep on keeping on.
Keep on keeping on.